All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is your favorite dark sorcerer here. I know it's been a little bit. So, I've been noticing a lot lately that more and more individuals that are claiming to be in the occult, those who have actually been in the occult for a while, really don't have an understanding of what certain terminology is surrounding divination. Now, personally, I've done everything from cartomancy to runes to Ouija boards, and out of all of it, you can't beat an old fashioned deck of cartomancy. Okay? Today, it's referred to as tarot card reading. Okay? Now, what's interesting about cartomancy, and it's the thing that no other system of divination can really delve into, is getting down to the nitty gritty of a situation or a question put forth by, say, yourself or a client. Now, what's interesting to note is runes can only get you so far. They can tell you certain things, but not really go into much detail. A Ouija board, you can summon spirits, demons, jinn, regular, ancestral spirits, whatever. You can do that, but you're not going to get a lot of the answers that you seek because there's a time limit. And it's very interesting to see. Now, think of it not as a time limit, but more of a certain amount of time that you get to commune with that spirit before the spirit goes, I'm bored. Okay? And tells you to basically piss off. Okay? And that's because they're dead, you're alive. A lot of spirits really don't want to work with the living, but there are a few that do. So when it comes down to any question, topic, or whatever, cartomancy is definitely the way to go. Now, it doesn't matter what deck you get. Okay? It really does not. I've got 7 decks of tarot cards. Okay? And for the remainder of this video, I'm going to refer to them in modern day terminology. But you got to remember, long before they became tarot cards, they were cartomancy. Goes all the way back to the 11th century. Okay? So I have the Necronomicon deck, which is a book of, it's basically a deck of tarot cards for spiritual communication. It's necromantic workings. I have the Fallen Angels deck, which deals with angelic stuff. And I also have the Devil's deck or the Demon's deck. Okay? Really like that deck, especially if you know the spirits that the cards represent. But I also have the White's deck. I have the Revelations deck. I have the Daniel's deck. Okay? And like I said, this is the Daniel's deck right here. I love this deck. And I'll tell you why. This deck deals with emotions, physical, mental, emotional. And it gets to the varying depth depending on the level of the card. Because you're dealing with colors, you're dealing with runes, you're dealing with astrological symbols, you're dealing with the placements of the cards. Okay? There's a lot that goes into it. For an example, okay, compared to, say, what, this card here, all right? Knowing your deck that you get, normally, one of the questions that was highly put forth in many of the Wiccan and occult community type groups on social media is, well, how do you know what deck is good for me? Well, guess what? That's simple. That's the most basic common question you can ask. You see, the deck that you're meant to work with normally calls out to you. You have that connection to that deck. It's the same thing with your Athame. Okay? And it's very interesting to see how many people always ask that question. Well, how do you know what deck to get? Well, did it call out to you? Do you feel that pull out of all the other decks that you saw? Was there one in particular that kept catching your eye? That meant that deck was yours. So get it, take it home, learn the deck. Okay? Now, every deck of cards these days comes with a book. Okay? It comes with a book. And the books only have a certain amount of spreads that you can lay the cards in. Certain amount of information about the cards, okay, that are in these books. Some are like a one sentence. You take the Rider White's deck, the White's deck or the Rider deck, only one sentence per card, okay? And you really don't get much into detail in those decks. But that's up to you on what you want to get, okay? Now, as I said, Cartomancy is one of those very simplistic things that you can do. I spend hours just doing spreads, just shuffling the decks, asking questions, seeing, knowing what I've got to deal with tomorrow. What kind of things can I deal with? What can I expect? What kind of obstacles are in the way? Your most basic things that, you're going to be dealing with, knowing that you got to go to work. Okay, we normally have 6 people. We're down to 3. What kind of day is it going to be? Is it going to be a shit show, or is it going to be one of those low impact kind of days where you're barely going to have anyone? Okay, and it doesn't limit you to this either. And you may have other things going on, like say a court case. You may be dealing with an enemy. Okay, we all have enemies. Okay, people who don't like us, that want to speak out against us and tell lies. The church is renowned for telling lies about black magicians, sorcerers, and sorceresses. Okay, not just Satanists now. In today's world, I can tell you, just within the last 12 years, I've gone to probably 6 churches, and they all speak about Satanism, satanic this, satanic that. It's like, do you guys even know what Satanism is about? It's of the devil. That's all they give a damn about. So they really don't delve into anything more than just spreading malicious lies. So if you're into baneful sorcery, like say curses, hexes, and jinxes, karma even, the threefold law, those of you in Wicca or Wiccan paganism, neo-paganism, you believe in this stuff, okay? Whereas a black magician will just sit there and go, well, if karma's due, justice, you need injustice turned into justice. Let's pull out the deck of cards. Let's ask a few questions and see, how do we deal with this SOB, okay? How do we deal with this SOB or this wench, okay? That is making our lives a living hell, okay? And I recommend doing at least 6 to 12, spreads. 6 to 12. You can ask the same question in numerous different ways. In fact, I encourage it, okay? And the reason for that is because you want to see the most common cards. Now, I would also suggest that if you're going to do this, get a notebook, okay? So it doesn't have to be anything too fancy, just something that you can write down the cards that you get per spread, okay? Per spread. The reason for that is because it will help you keep track of what you've done this far, all right? And what's interesting to note is that when you feel that you've gotten the answer that you are seeking, okay, I don't really delve into the cards personally until I've got all my ducks in a row. Because what I do is I'll ask the question, I'll call upon a spirit like, say, Astaroth or Seer, if you're into the Goetia, or if you're not, go into the Talmud, the Mishra, the Jewish Haggadah, whatever, and call upon a spirit that you work with and that you're comfortable working with, okay? And petition them for their guidance, their wisdom, okay? I do this all the time, okay? So normally what I would do is I would shuffle the deck a few times. I'd do the bridge, get a much deeper, pure read. But when I talk to the spirits that I summon to aid me in my quest, I always petition them to use me as a conduit. Okay, basically, I'm stepping back to allow their truth to come forth and speak through the cards. All I have to do is interpret the cards. Very simplistic manner. Okay, it's a method that it works. It's proven to work numerous times. Okay, and I normally do this about three times. Okay, bridge wise. So if I ask a question and I petition a spirit, I would call forth that spirit and say, I need your wisdom, your knowledge, or if I'm doing a tarot card read for a client, okay, then I would petition, say, okay, let's go with Seer. I would go with Seer, my client. I'd name the client, and I would say, this client has come to me seeking wisdom, seeking knowledge. What their issue is, what their topic is. What wisdom do you have for them? And then I would do the first bridge, and then I would go into the second set of shuffling, and I would say, I open myself up as a conduit, and so that you may speak without any biasness or hindrance from me. I'm removing myself so your truth and your wisdom can come forth. And I would literally just do the shuffling, and while I'm doing that, do the bridge again. And then on the third going round, I would thank that spirit for taking their time and coming and answering your question or my question. Okay? This is what works for me. Y'all got to figure out what works for you. Okay? Not everything that I do is going to work for you guys, and not everything you do is going to work for somebody like me. Okay? So, anyways, after that third bridge, I always hold my deck like so. And I would relax myself, put myself in almost like a momentary meditational experience. And the reason for that is because I want to clear my mind. Okay? The only thing that should be going through your mind is that question. Okay? The question being put forth if you're using a spirit. Now, the spread is it does not matter what design you lay down. You could do a 6-card read. You could do the plus, the equal armed cross. You could do the Celtic cross. You could do the classic 3-card draw. The pyramid, which is where you have 2 pyramids. And as you go down, you pick either left or right until you're down at the bottom. And then you associate light with dark and such. Now, one of the questions put forth about a spread is how do you know what spread to use? I don't. I let the cards do it. If it feels right to me, I just do it. Flat out. Okay? And the reason for that is because I don't overthink it. The answers that I seek are more plentiful and fruitful than that of, say, the biasness of trying to sit there and interrupt what I'm doing for that one spread. Okay? There are so many different types of readings that it could be put forth through any number of spreads. You really don't want to overthink it. Okay? Now, a spread is the way you lay down your cards. Okay? That's where you lay your cards down. Okay? I just laid 6 cards down and wrote, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 3 up here, 3 down here. Okay? Simplistic. Okay? Just to show you that you really don't have to overthink it. Now, I drew the tower. I drew the 7 of skulls, the 2 of skulls, the 10 of knives, the chariot, and the 8 of skulls. Okay? Right off the bat, you have 2 major arcana cards, the tower and the chariot, whereas the other 4 are your basic minor arcana cards. Okay? Now, what's interesting to note is all of these are in light aspect. Okay? Every single one of them. But I also didn't ask the question either. I just laid them down. Okay? So I do want to point that out right now. So one of the things, once I've got my spread out, once I've done the card reading, and I will tell you this before we go into this read, is some people will just, kind of do this with the cards, kind of make them in almost like a U type shape. And then they'll sit there with their eyes closed and they'll run their hand back and forth over it just to see that drag. Okay? You feel that drag almost like an anchor. You're close to a card that is meant to come out. That is why they do that. Okay? Not all practitioners use that method. So, when you get the cards down, some people, they'll get, like, say, the devil card, or they'll get the hangman, and they think, oh my God, I'm going to go to hell. I'm going to die. That's always the first thing that comes to mind when they get those cards. But they don't stop to think that it's not about that. They just represent certain aspects. Okay? For an example, let's go with the hangman card. The hangman card may be something being put to death. Okay? Being put, to the finishing touches on. Let's say, for an example, you're going through orientation at a job. Okay? You're going through an orientation. Your orientation is coming to an end. Your training period is coming to an end, and you're about to become an official employee. Now, if that hangman card is in light position, that's a good thing, because that means that, guess what? It's a positive sign that something's being finished up. It is being, excuse me, and it's being put into the background. It's being put into the background. Awesome. Okay? So whereas in the inverted aspect, the shadow aspect, that means something that it's not that you're going to die. It's more of the fact that it's more or less the fact that you have, or you either overlook something, or you are just basically neglecting something. And it's basically hindering your process. That's all that means. So when you get a deck, that is why it's always wise to learn your deck. Know your cards. Okay? Now, like I said, the first card I pulled up was the Tower. Okay? That was the first card I laid down. Now, what's interesting to note is the Tower card represents destruction and creation. Okay? In this case, it's in the light aspect. So it would mean you're about to go on a creative invention. Okay? You're about to create something awesome. It could be you're going out to fix your better half's car, or you're about to go get a haircut to start a new journey, looking better than a shaggy dog, so to speak. Okay. It could be you're about to begin your new position, okay, as a team lead or management. Either way, it's a positive sign. You may even be creating a new grimoire, okay? And it's very interesting because when you get into your studies, you're going to be keeping a grimoire. You're going to be keeping a journal. You're going to be keeping a dream journal, a ritual journal, methods of how to displace this stuff. Okay? So, in a sense, I just started a grimoire yesterday. My better half went to the store and she picked me up some notebooks. Okay? So, I'm actually getting ready to start a grimoire working around a Slavic deity. Okay? Known as the Dark Lord, the Dark God. His name is Chernobog. Okay? His polar opposite is Belobog. So, I wanted to start a new grimoire with him, and the fact that this was the first card that came up confirms what I was already starting to do. Okay. 7 of Skulls. Also in light aspect. Okay. And this is very interesting because of the fact that skulls resemble spiritualism. Okay. But skulls are also the emotional aspect. A lot of people think, okay, you got the wands or the scepters, you have the knives or the swords. Okay, number one, that's your magical and physical attributes. But then you've got the chalice or the cups. That's more of the life giving aspect. And then you got the skulls. The skulls are very, very complex, but they are straightforward. The 7 of Skulls, for an example, is associated with Saturn. Okay? Now, if you look right up here on the tree, and I'm going to bring this over to my cell phone because I got the cell phone in the laptop going today. You will notice the astrological symbol right there. Let me see if I can't clean this up a little bit here for you. Right there. Okay. That is the alchemical symbol for the planetary aspects of Saturn. Okay. The dark planet. So you see how astrology plays into this. So you're going to be going into astrology. You're going to not just going into main astrology or planetary magic, but you're also going to be going into the dark aspects. And I would highly recommend that. The next card is the 2 of Skulls. Okay. Let me see if I can't clean that up here. There you go. Okay. This one here is very interesting because it deals with the duality. Okay. The twins, the lookalikes. On one half, it's almost like a mirror complex. Now, what's funny is last night, no, actually, it was early this morning, I was asked, do I work with mirrors? Sometimes is the term that I use. Scrying mirrors is another way to look into the spirit world. It is also a great way to call forth spirits for answers and questions. Now, when you think about this, it could mean that you're calling a spirit, but on the other hand, you could be dealing with yourself. When you're aligned with yourself, the mind, body, and spirit, you're in harmony. You're in harmony. You're well balanced. But yet, it's very interesting to see how a lot of people tend to overthink it. They tend to get into it as, okay, is the spirit trying to contact me, or am I the spirit trying to contact the spirit, or whatever? Okay? You really don't have to think about it. The cards literally are straightforward. Then you have the nines. In this case, the 10 of nines. And you're dealing with Gemini. You'll notice right here, let me see if I can't clean that up just a little bit. You'll notice the Gemini aspect right where the hand, right between the head and the hand. It's based off her necklace, and it's the Gemini. Now, as far as I can tell, there is no other symbol on this card outside of that. But you also got the butterfly as an animal guide. Knives are physical, okay? So you really want to take note that when you get into the knives, you're not looking at spiritual, you're not looking at emotional, you're not looking at magical, okay, or religious perspectives. You're looking at point blank the physical reality, okay? When you get into this, you can be looking at your past, your current situation, and where you're looking to be down the road. How is this going to align and affect you going into the future? Okay? Really take that into consideration. And then you have the Chariot. The Chariot. Chariots have long been used going as far back as the ancient world. Very, very impressive artwork in this by Daniels, I have to say. The Chariot is more of a warrior card. Think of the mausoleums or the causoleums fights in Roman times. But also think of the war chariots. Odin and his chariot coming down from Valhalla in Norse mythology to meet with the Vikings or the Saxons, but also to his followers. He also rides with the Valkyries, who ride on flying horses, the Pegasus type horses. Okay? So you're dealing with an archer. The archer, the hunter, the huntress goes into Greek mythology. You're going into Egyptian mythology and history. You're dealing with a lot throughout the world. It just fits this card alone. So again, you really don't have to overthink it. It's just a matter of knowing what the card represents. You're in a war state of mind. Okay? You're going towards what you want. You're fighting for what you want. Okay? So when it's in light position, all things are in your favor. Okay? You're conquering your fears. You're conquering your training. You're conquering everything that goes along with that. Okay? And then you have the Eight of Skulls. It's ironic that you, in this card here and the Chariot, you also have the depiction of the Jaguar, which is very interesting, by the way. Yeah. And my leg's falling asleep because I'm on the floor. Yeah, we did a lot of rearranging yesterday, so I got downgraded to this desk. It's a little armoire of I don't know what you want to call it. Just a thing in the way to me. But anyways, so this is the Eight of Skulls. Okay, and I want you to see it. Okay. Very, very beautiful artwork. Okay. Now he's holding a skull up while he's got lightning in his other hand. That's something that tells me this is a sorcerer. This card deals with magic, but also the spiritualism of the arcane. And it's very interesting because it also deals with time, which means you're dealing in an incantation. The fact that a jaguar is up in the upper right-hand corner reveals it is a search for self. Okay? You're defining yourself, you're collecting yourself, and you're becoming more balanced within emotion, feelings. Okay? And that's a good thing. So, let me just kind of turn here so I can stretch out my legs. Um, anyways, so overall, a lot of people tend to get caught up on a single card. Okay? You do not have to get caught up on a single card. That's the biggest mistake that you can make is when you hone in on a single card. Because if you want to understand a reading, it does not matter. Number one, it does not matter the amount of cards that you lay down. Number two, it does not matter if it's light or shadow. You just have to understand the aspects between the two. Okay? So if you got something that's positive, and the next time that card comes up, it's a negative, that means that there's something there that you've overlooked that you got to deal with and contend with. But at the same time, look at the overall reading. When you look at the overall reading, that is where you're going to get your information, not just from a single card. Okay? Not from a single card, but the overall. So I want you to understand that if you're going to get into cartomancy, you really want to understand what you're doing with the cards. You have to know your cards. You have to understand what each card represents. You don't have to go into every detail surrounding each card. Use your intuition. Use your thoughts, your feelings. What does that card stir up in you when you're dealing with a client? Or what does it stir up with you when you're doing a reading for yourself? Okay? Either way, it's valid. It does not mean that you're going to die. It does not mean that something's going to be destroyed. It does not mean jack crap unless you do the overall reading. Think of it as the way I tell my apprentices and my students is this. When you're dealing with cartomancy, think of it as a story. When you're reading a book to your child, okay? Let's say, for example, you're reading, let's go with the Hardy Boys, okay? Do you start at the beginning and work your way through? Or are you going to skip to the end to find out who the villain or villainess is? Okay? You see the point. You got to understand their journey. What went down between A and Z? Okay? And when you do that, that is when you will get the gnosis. Think of it as events unfolding. Each time you connect those dots, that is where your reading is going to be. Because you know your cards. You know what you're practicing. It does not matter if you're doing it for you, your family, or a client. Even if you're dealing with an enemy, the cards will reveal the best method to understand why they're attacking and how you should handle it, either through defensive purposes or offensive purposes. It just deals in that way. So, all right. So when you get into this stuff, I want you to understand these things, these facts. The spread does not matter. You can put in a pyramid, a cross. You could do the more classic five card here and then 5 cards up. The 10-card read. You can even put another row down beneath. You can use the entire deck if you wanted to, but just keep in mind If you use one card, you got to delve so deep into that card and pull out everything. But if you use all the cards, you got way, 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 way more information that you're dealing with. Now, personally, I wouldn't recommend going beyond a 14 card read. Okay? 10 card reads, very plentiful. 6 card read, very plentiful. 5 card read, perfect. Okay? Because it reveals a story. It reveals the intent in what is happening in your world or your client's world. Okay? So when you get into this stuff, learn your cards, learn the book, learn the representations. You're going to be delving into astrology, numerology. You're going to be delving into colors, planetary symbols, zodiac symbols. You're going to be delving into so much. And those of you who are into black magic, sorcery, and you get into astrology in general, you're going to find out that any given planet, say for an example, let's take Saturn for an example because it popped up in this reading. Okay. You're going to have the planetary symbol through alchemy. Okay. You're going to have the symbol of the spirit of that planet. You're going to have the seal of that planet. But then you're also going to have the actual alchemy symbol for that planet and what it represents through a metal, for an example. Take Mercury. There's a reason why Mercury is one of the alchemical symbols. Even with sulfur. Why is sulfur associated with the dark planet? Think about that for just a moment. But like I said, it does not matter. You just got to read the cards. But that's what I would recommend to you. Just going down through some of these posts here. Phoenix Turpin, long time no see. John Goma, welcome. Barrow Stiller X, welcome to the channel. So yeah, so do any of you have any questions for me right now? Because I'm going to open up the forum for a little bit here, and kind of so you can ask questions about Cartomancy. All right, Joan, I'll do that. I think we're friends on Facebook, aren't we? I think we are. I know we're in a few groups together. Cool. So, yeah, I don't think anybody's got any questions. Well, it's always the first time. Well, the moon has a lot of effect on the subconscious mind, the psyche, not just the planetary aspects. So since I'm on Facebook and this question came on Facebook, I'm also on YouTube at the same time. So I'm going to read you what Phoenix Turpin read, or just posted, I should say. Do you think the moon phases also affect your reading? Okay. The answer is no. It doesn't affect you on a physical or mental stature. The moon phases, depending on where it is, and I'm going to give you a diagram to draw for yourselves. When you draw a straight line across the paper, let's say, for example, you turn the tall section sideways and you go from right to left or left to right, doesn't really matter. And then you start with the weaving, okay? So you have lines above and below that line. When you get into this aspect, you're getting into what is commonly referred to as psychiatric or medical terminology, okay? In this case, let's talk about, say, your moods, okay? Let's talk about the moods that you're in. We all get into those moods where we're completely in a, don't want to deal with people, we're frustrated, we're depressed, whatever, okay? Now, looking at that diagram, every line below that line, that is what that classifies Phoenix, okay? All those negative emotions, okay? You remember what I said about the cards being in either light or shadow aspect? Shadow aspect would be that negative side of things, but it would also be something that you have overlooked or not considered to take into your readings or into your questions or whatever you're doing. So if you're into the light aspects of the cards, everything above that would be harmony, health, good fortunes, being cheery, the whole king caboodle there. So everything's going according to plan. Now, most people tend to stay roughly where that line is going across. When you first get into dating, you know how cheery you are when you start finding that new connection? Same exact thing. That's the light aspect. But if something's not going according to plan, you're not making that connection, it's in the shadow. So, yes, it does have a physical aspect to it, but it's not in a magical reading aspect. Because when you're doing cartomancy or even tarot card readings, as I said I was going to do, stay to it as here. And believe me, I'm trying so hard to use the term tarot card because a lot of people don't know that it used to be known as cartomancy. So it's funny because when you've used the term so long, it's like second nature. So when you're thinking about it and you're doing the reading, you're doing the spread, you want to look at all factors within that. A lot of cards, like say the Ian Daniels, that's more nocturnal type deck, so because it deals with the vampiric aspects. So you're dealing with nocturnal aspects of planetary, you're dealing with numerology, you're dealing with the lunar aspects. Okay. Most of the cards show a full moon, but others will show a more, let's call it a blood moon. Okay. Others will show a quarter moon. Okay. Either as a phylactery or a symbol. And you really have to take that in consideration as well because of, and knowing the different moon phases and how it would affect a person's life. So if you're dealing with, say, for example, a client and you're doing a tarot card reading, let me bring that deck out real fast again so I can show you what I mean. All right. You notice how small the moon is in the background here, okay? That's basically a full moon, okay? But yet, in this card, the Eight of Knives, you have a yellow sign. You remember what I said about colors? Now, have you ever wondered why medical professionals use colors, a color system? Why, when you have a child, you always have a certain colored diagram that you can do if it's a boy or a girl. Okay? It sets the stages for the mind development. But then you have a very large moon. Okay? Consider this a super moon. Okay? In this aspect. Whereas in this one, you simply have the ray of the moon color. Okay? In the upper right hand corner. Okay? And this one here, the Nine of Grails, you have 3/4 of a moon. Okay? The eclipse factor, the hidden moon. So all you have is that light aspect. Okay? Either way you look at it, you have some form of a moon phase. That moon phase could indicate, depending if it's light or dark, it could indicate that something's being overlooked or something's being hidden. Something could be clouded, could be a great hunt. For an example, the card that I pulled earlier, let me get to it here, and I'll show you what I mean. Right there. All right, the Chariot. Okay. Notice how that moon is big and bright. Great time for the hunter's moon. It could resemble the harvest moon, the hunter's moon. So when you get into tarot card readings, one of the things that you do want to look into is the aspects of the moon. When you're doing spell work and you're getting ready to do spell work, the moon would really play a big part in this. Okay? For example, the waxing moon is a great time for creation. The employment of certain spells would be done on the full moon, whereas baneful sorcery would be on the waning. Okay, you see the three aspects of the moon: the coming of the moon, the full moon, and then the full moon dissipating. These aspects really do play a part in the reading, and especially if you're planning to do certain magical workings. So, to answer your question, Phoenix, on a physical note, the answer is no. The the moon phases do not implement your magic. They can make it more powerful. Yes. The rarer the moon, like say the blue moon, the color coded moon, was it just a few years back? I want to say it was like 2017, I think it was. 2000, was it 16, 17? Somewhere along that lines, we had 5 supermoons of various colors. Okay? This hasn't been viewed in like 500 years. Okay? 500 years. That's a complete alignment of planets, not just the moon phases in itself. That's an alignment taking place every 500 years. The blood moon appears every 6 months. The blue moon takes place roughly about once every 3 to 4 months. You got the harvest moon, maybe twice a month, maybe twice a year rather, if you're lucky. But every month you have full moons, you have quarter moons, you have a second, I'm trying to scroll up here. All right. So you have to understand the moon setting to perform your spells. What does it call for? What type of ritual are you going for? It's the same thing with planetary magic. You have to know which planet to perform the spells on. But it doesn't affect you within a magical sense. Let me just scroll up here. Damn thing. It doesn't affect your readings at all. And one of the questions on YouTube, Phoenix, is by Key Ken. Hopefully I pronounced that right because it's K-E space Ken, as in K-I-N. Ken, the cards lie. I feel the spirits lie to me. Okay? So this actually plays into what you were just asking. Okay? The cards never lie. They tell you things that even if you're not even aware of it. Okay? There are things that the cards will tell you or your client, even if you don't want to hear it. If you're not ready to hear it, the cards will still tell you what needs to be said. It is the same thing. So, I mean, when you take that diagram that I just mentioned, the moon phases only affect you as an individual. It doesn't just affect the planet itself, like the tides, for an example. How they go in and out, it affects the time of the day or night when that moon is either big, small, close, or far away. It's a gravitational pull. That, unfortunately, is unavoidable with a mental state. There's an old expression that says the occult gathers the insane. If you think about it, why are so many people so unstable that are in the occult? Think about that for just a moment. It is because they don't have their mind together. When you grow with your practices, you have all your ducks in a row, you will be in harmony. But when you neglect something, you overlook something and you purposely neglect it, then it's not going to work. Spirits can come to you and reveal just about a lot of stuff. Okay. For an example, to answer your question, Ken, I feel like spirits lie to me. People lie all the time. Do you expect them to lie? Think about that for just a moment. If you look at a spirit and you petition a spirit to come forth, especially in a tarot card situation, the cards do not lie. The spirit will work and deliver the message that you have requested. They will not lie to you. They have no need to lie to you. They've been there and done that so many times. Why would they lie? There are trickster spirits out there, yes. You have Mephistopheles, who's known as the trickster, in Mesopotamian folklore. You have Loki, a trickster in Norse mythology. Just to name a couple. Okay? These beings will try to trick you, yes. But they can also twist your words. Most spirits who come to you when you call for on a particular spirit, cartomancy, these do not lie. That's why I like them so much. They do not lie. The spirit that you call will come to you. So, like I said, I'm renowned for calling on Astaroth, the Grand Duke. I've worked with Astaroth for a very long time. I built up a relationship with Astaroth. She Astaroth is my patron. I even have Astaroth Sigil tattooed as a seal, a permanent seal on my flesh. Okay? So when you get into a relationship status and you've come to trust that spirit, it doesn't matter what moon phase it's in. It doesn't matter what planetary state it's in. You're seeking answers. Your client is seeking answers. The spirit will reveal that. So it comes down to who you're working with and who you trust. You build that connection with any particular spirit, you'll know their essence every time. Every time you will learn to identify their essence. Now, if you are using a Ouija board, a talking board or spirit board, it's been identified as all of them, all of the above. Then when you open that portal, it's basically an invite to any spirit. Okay, any spirit. You could be looking to call, say for example, if you're into voodoo, you may be calling upon, say, a particular ancestor. Okay, you'll get a demon, or you'll get a jinn, you'll get one of the many gods that are out there. You don't have that sense of control when you're calling upon these beings with a Ouija board. It's much more open, and you're basically sending out an open invitation to every single one of them. Okay? Doesn't matter if you're into Enochian and working angel magic, or you're working with as a demonolator with nothing but demons. Same exact thing. Runes, like I said, will tell you just about that much information. But if you really want to work in a system that will get you a long, long way, go with tarot cards. Go with cartomancy. Plain and simple. You can get a lot of information in a lot of detail. All you have to do is keep a journal and keep record of what you've done. I would recommend date and time, just so you know which set of readings you did on that particular day. Okay? And then when you get into other formulations, let's say, for example, let's go into the next day, you're doing this all again. Then in that case, another day, let's say, for example, it's 3/24 or 7, let's go with 7/19/2021. You take today, for example, 7/24/2021. That would be the date and time, 2 p.m. when, is when I started doing these readings. Okay? Then it's just a matter of documenting the cards and the aspect that they befell. I would also recommend that if you're doing 6 or more readings per time, that you also write the number of how many times that particular card came up in your readings. Okay? Now, if you have 3 or more times that card has come up, or even 2 times for that matter, then there's a reason why those cards keep coming up. And it's up to you to go over, pick up that book, go underneath those cards, and read the full extent of the message, the Q&As, the essence of the card, and the shadow aspects of the card, and try to figure out, okay, what message are these cards trying to tell me? Okay, that's why I enjoy dealing with these more than any other system of divination. Okay, scrying mirrors, they're the same thing as a Ouija board to me. You open up that realm, guess what? You're going to be dealing with not just one particular spirit, you're going to be dealing with a whole slew of spirits. Okay, which again, you have to be ready for. You have to know defensive magic and offensive magic. Okay, you got to understand how to shield yourself and make yourself invisible, protect yourself, just so that you can commune with it and hide your own essence. Because the living is not supposed to work with the dead. Okay, and that's from a necromantic perspective. Okay, so that's basically how to do cartomancy readings. Okay, tarot card readings. Belial, that's another one. One of the 9 kings of the Goetia. He who bestows senatorships and titles of importance. Mephisto, short for Mephistopheles. The pact maker. The trickster. It's kind of interesting. So right there, Phoenix, I would recommend jotting that down. 2 times the number 9 came down. Now, what would be particularly interesting is if it was the same sword or dagger, for an example. Either a knife or a sword, a cup or a chalice. Now, if it was the same tower of cards, then there's a reason for that coming up. So you may want to do some more readings on that and try to figure out why that's coming up that way. It could be a reason for it. All right. So I want to thank everybody for jumping on here with me. I'm going to log off. I've got some errands to run. And I'll send you that PM, John. All right. Have a good one.